Well, good evening. My name is Tom, and I come to you from the Rustic log cabin in Northern Maine. Welcome to my cabin. As you can see in the background, I'm making progress on the walls. As you can see, the sun is out now from this morning in the video when we started this framing up the walls. I framed up these walls last Thursday, and in the morning it wasn't raining. By 10 o'clock in the morning it was raining, and by noontime it was raining cats and dogs. So rather than quit, I just worked in the rain. I framed up all 4 walls that day before I quit. I was not able to videotape any of it. The only camera that I have that's weatherproof is a GoPro, and just too much moving around for the GoPro as far as framing walls and all of that, as well as water on the lenses, and the list goes on and on. So I packed away the cameras that day, so at the beginning of this video we start out with some, and now here we are 4 days later, 5 days later, I guess. Today's July 28th. I don't exactly remember when last Thursday is. I guess I could have figured it out. Meantime, had a live stream at the cabin. Thank you all for participating in that. It went a little longer than I normally like, but hey, it always happens that way. Everybody's having a good time, and I just stay right there. So, but well, I'm going to finish up today. You can see, I'll take you around, show you the cabin. All 4 walls are in. I'm in a really good mood today. The lumberyard just called, and all of my outside wall material is cut and ready to be picked up. So that gives me the entire building. I'll have it all here on site within a couple of days. So that's great. Now the whole building is sitting here, minus the door. I've got the door is made out of 2x6 pine, tongue and groove. That comes from a different lumberyard. So I'll get the wall sheathing on, and my rafters are sitting over here in a pile. I hauled them in here yesterday. So once I have the wall boards on, then I will put in the rafters, and we're moving on to the roof. So anyways, that's the good news on today's build. And we're in the tips. I left off last week with tip number 3. And today, so I'm going to start out with tip number 4. Tip number 4 is going to be your level. When to use it and how to use it. How's that sound? As you'll see, all 4 walls are up. I did not put a level on these walls to plumb them until today. And the reason I did it today was because I started putting in my blocking. If you start out with a level, square platform and start building, you don't need to level these walls. You don't need to plumb them. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff until all 4 walls are built and nailed together. It's that simple. On a small building, now remember, on a small building, and then that means a building of 12 by 16, maybe that would be on the big end of it. Building this size, 8 by 12, anything small, you don't need to plumb the walls as you go. You can nail all 4 walls together, and then when you get to this point, with all 4 walls are standing, then you can put your level on the building and put your braces on until to make sure it's square and make sure it's plumb. It just saves a lot of running around for nothing, because you always end up adjusting stuff after all 4 walls are up anyways. So any of the leveling that you did or the plumbing that you did prior to completing all 4 walls is just a waste of time, because you're going to take your braces off and you're going to adjust things one more time before you're done. So save a step, don't bother with it, and do it now. Now here's the trick about a level. This is a 4-foot level. Both ends on these levels are never exact, ever. So do yourself a favor, pick one end of the level. I mark all my levels are marked out. This one is a aluminum level, so I scored it, but I also put X's. That's the only bubble on this job that I will use. And you can pick which bubble you want, going back to your water level. Water always finds its own level. So you can check this level with the water level and find out if it's on or if it's not. You know, other than this bubble here. This bubble you can see if it's on or not. You can check it with your water level. This one here, I usually, I have 2 or 3 levels, and I'll play with 2 or 3 levels so that I find the 3 bubbles or the 3 level bubbles that all work together, and that's what I do. But then I stick with that one bubble, because and this right off the shelf, brand new, if you plumb your wall with this bubble and then you flip it over and use this bubble, I guarantee they'll be off 99.9% of the time. It's just the way it is. I've been using levels my whole life. Some people might want to beg to differ, but I'm telling you right now, that's 40 years of experience of playing with levels. So that's my tip right there, tip number 4 on levels and plumbing your walls. And tip number 5 is the weak link in any of these buildings. If you remember back a couple of videos ago, I want this building to last more than 100 years. I'm building it with a 100-year window in mind. It's not that far-fetched, and it's not that hard to do. One of the spots in cabins that always rots out first is underneath the door heading outside, because that's where the wind blows the rain in, it runs down the building, and then it seeps around your door stoop, and then gets down into the sills or gets down into the floor joists. And that's where these buildings will start to rot out. And any that I've repaired in the past, same deal. Now what I do 2 or 3 different things here. And what on the sill going across in front of the door, you can flash it. and I do. They also sell ice and water shield, about 6 inches wide. I'll lay that in there, then I will flash it. Piece of ice and water shield, then my flashing, and then I put in my, like on these, I build my own door stool. So on these, then I put my door stool in, and then I use the 50-year silicone to seal up the edges, and then I trim out my door and then hang my door. Now here's another old school trick, and I will use this in indoor situations as well. Because this is such a vulnerable area, there's an old trick that I rely on in several parts, and I'm going to give you 6 tips this week. The other one is you can take used motor oil and kerosene. 2 parts used motor oil, 1 part kerosene. That means 1 cup of 1 cup of used motor oil, a 1/2 cup of kerosene. Put them in a paint can, stir it up. Any of the sill that's exposed around that door, you can paint this used motor oil and kerosene mixture on the timbers, around the timbers. Once you put a little bit of motor oil on there, the reason for the kerosene is so that the timbers will soak it up. Soak up the oil, and all that will soak into the timber. And it's to me, it's better than pressure treated lumber. So that's all under tip number 5 on dealing with around the door. So if you're new to the channel and want to follow along, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.